Unam asked Do-o, I wonder, what does the Bodhisattva of compassion make use of so many hands and eyes for? So we now have a statue of Kwanseum Bosal, so I'm told, on the altar. That's the personification of compassion, and the image is 10,000 hands, 1,000 hands, 1,000 eyes. So that has to do with capacity to be receptive and responsive, right, all over the world. So Do said, it's like reaching back, groping for a pillow in the middle of the night. Unam said, I understand. Do said, how do you understand it? Unam said, all over the body are hands and eyes. Do said, you've said quite a bit, but you've only said 80%. Unam said, how do you see it, elder brother? Do said, throughout the body are hands and eyes. Interesting. All over the body are hands and eyes. Throughout the body are hands and eyes. What's going on here? First, reaching back, groping for a pillow in the middle of the night. Everybody can do that. It doesn't take a lot of thought. It doesn't take planning. It doesn't take figuring things out. So, simple action. So, similarly, wise and compassionate action has that quality. It's a natural thing. Certainly in our life there are things you have to figure out, but the arising of that occurs naturally. Second, all over the body are hands and eyes. That's okay, but throughout the body are hands and eyes. That's completely saturated, not just on the surface. So when you continually rest with what's fundamental, that's your Buddha nature engaging with your Buddha nature, okay? So Huineng, the sixth ancestor, said the first vow, we phrase it, sentient beings are numberless, we vow to save them all. That was the phrasing then too. He said, it doesn't mean I, Huineng, save you, sentient beings. It means the sentient beings in my mind of their own accord return to their fundamental nature. Of their own accord. You don't have to do anything. That's like throwing up a ball and it comes down by itself. You don't have to grab it out of the air unless you're a juggler. Then there's something else to be done. So you have a good reason to be fundamentally confident. And the more you engage that confidence, the less you have to worry about what should I do about my thinking, what should I do about my feeling, what should I do about this, what should I do about that. Not very much. There's not very much to do to bring forth that which is already there. So Layman Palm's daughter said it's like touching your nose when you wash your face. I challenge any of you, have you ever missed? Even with your eyes closed. Good. It's an innate ability, right? In fact, it's unavoidable. So it's the doing of something to make something go away that's rooted in our fundamental cause of suffering. I want something. I can't get it, so I'm suffering. I want to stop thinking, I can't stop thinking, so I'm suffering. Fill in the blanks according to James. He had 23 different scripts. You can generate more if you want. So there's some sense of insufficiency there. Our teaching is that bodhisattva suffering means sentient beings are numberless, so they're suffering, so I'm suffering, so practice is endless. But you knew that before you came in the door. So Buddha is trusting your own fundamental nature. When you trust your own fundamental nature, something activates by itself. It's not magic, and it's certainly not special. When you put down your left foot, typically afterwards you put down your right foot. then you probably put down your left foot again. If the circumstances are different, you might walk differently. Right? Maybe there's some physical infirmity, or maybe there's something funny about the terrain, so you don't walk that way, but you follow your circumstances. So, Dharma means path. Path means follow your circumstances. If you're going to follow your circumstances, you have to see what's before you. If you see what's before you, the map is already there. So Dharma is also not a special thing. Once Zen Master Sun Tan told me, if you practice very strongly, then you get great Dharma energy. That's like telling a 4-year-old he can fly. Oh, great Dharma energy. It took me about 40 years. That it kind of means putting your left foot down and then putting your right foot down. That's great Dharma energy. Great Dharma energy means paying attention to what's in front of you. And if you pay attention to what's in front of you, then one thing that you see is that all circumstances and all sentient beings are our teachers. That means you're always a student, but nobody's grading you. Because fundamentally, being a student is not about being graded. Being a student is about engaging, learning, mastering, and then doing it again. So, if you have the mind of a student, then you're humble, receptive, responsive, grateful, kind, generous, giving, caring, all that stuff that we say we want to have. As soon as you become a student, it's there. Which means it wasn't anyplace else ever anyway. So, Sangha means always perceive everybody's mind light. Then they become your teacher. So, always perceive everybody's mind light, then they become your teacher. That's why we're here. Because we have a couple of dozen mind lights in the room. So, if I want to learn something about the path, then I have to look at you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you. Because you teach me the shape of the space you occupy. You're more familiar with it than I am. I may see it from a different angle than you. But if I don't engage with the space you occupy, then we can't occupy that space together. I'm too busy insisting that you occupy it differently or not occupy it at all. So the virtue of having a place where things are predictable is that it makes it easy to learn. James was saying that maybe we should have fewer Zen centers in Cambridge, but there are infinite Zen centers in Cambridge. Right? There's one on that corner, and there's one on the next corner, and there's one on the next corner, and they're all over the subway, and they're driving the car next to you. Right? This is a special Zen center. This is a Zen center that we call a Zen center, and we make it a Zen center because we have an intention, and this supports our intention. But the purpose of supporting our intention here is so that when we leave here, that intention is live, vibrant, engaged, and vital elsewhere. Otherwise, we're limiting ourselves to who our teachers are. Oh, my Dharma brothers and sisters are my teachers. That person's a jerk. Then I have to go back to my Dharma brothers and sisters to recover from meeting that jerk. That jerk's also your teacher. So, my concern as a teacher is to promote prajna, Sangha prajna. Right, the wisdom of the Sangha. The small Sangha. Right, the Sangha of people who come together and practice this thing in this place this way. Because the more familiar we are with each other and each other's personalities and what we have to offer each other and what we can count on each other for and what we can learn from each other, right? The more we build our capacity to do that every place else. Because most other places we go, people don't do that intentionally. But here we do. So the place is only special in that we share that intention together with this form in this way. But you've all met somebody somewhere who does that without doing it like this. So it doesn't only reside here in this form in this way, but doing it here in this form in this way helps us see it every place else in that form in that way. So I'll give you an example. First, please don't try this at home. I'm coming out of Chase Bank near my house on 161st Street. And there's 3 guys on the street. There's 2 guys and a 3rd guy. And they're upping the ante with each other. There's a fight that's about to happen. And the lone guy is Puerto Rican, and the other 2 guys are black, for whatever it's worth. But that's the flavor of the tension. Right? It could have been an Armenian and a Buddhist, for that matter, but that would just be you within yourself. Anyway, you're familiar with that. So the guy by himself is down in some kind of karate stance, I think. I don't know, I'm not a karate master, but he looks like he's ready to karate-size. And one of the other guys is down in a boxer's crouch. And then the 3rd guy is behind the guy in the boxer's crouch in an I've got your back stance, which means you're staying in front of me, I've got your back. And these 2 guys are telling this guy what they're going to do to him, and he's telling them what he's going to do first. And I hear it before I see it, and it's New York. It's not that unusual. It's not every place all the time, but it's not unusual. We've got 10 million people. It's going to happen. So I'm walking past, but it feels like I should take a look. So I take a look, and they look like they mean it. And then this happens faster than I can explain it, but this thought arises, should I keep going, or should I not keep going? Right? Something's going to happen, and here I am. And they're all bigger than me, or at least they're more fit, and they're ready to fight, and I'm not really ready. So if I had a conversation, it would have sounded like that. It felt like that, but it wasn't a conversation. And somehow I ended up walking, I don't even know how this happened. I walked close to them, and I looked at all 3, and I say, you want a cup of coffee? Like I said, don't try this at home. And the 2 black guys look at me, and one of them says, yeah, I'll take a cup of coffee. I said, all right. And I thought, okay, that's cool. But now they're engaged with me, which means the other guy has an opening because they're not looking at him anymore, so he can up the ante. So he starts getting more threatening because they've dropped their guard a little bit, so like here's his chance. Right? If he had an axe, like it would have gone from here to here. So I look at him and I say, do you want a cup of coffee? And he says, all right. And I said, all right, let's you and me get a cup of coffee. They didn't really want the coffee. So they were fine, and they would have said yes, I think, but they were fine with him taking up the offer, because either way you get it out. So I kind of sidle up over to him, and we start walking down toward McDonald's, and they start walking away, but now they're busy telling each other what they would have done if I hadn't intervened. You're lucky, right? Because if he hadn't come along, I would have really, But that doesn't last very long. And we walk over to the McDonald's and we start talking. And the guy I say to him, oh, you're from Puerto Rico. He told me this. He said, how's your family? The storm was bad. Are your people okay? Do you have anybody there? Yeah, we didn't, we're on this part of the island, it wasn't so bad. Then he tells me, my father's nickname was Coffee.
Wow.
So we have casual conversation. I buy him the coffee. He thanks me for the coffee. We kind of give each other a little hug, and I leave. I don't know how that happened. And I wouldn't want to repeat it. And some of it had to do with trusting what arose in the moment. And that's why I say don't try this at home. Don't go looking for fights to settle. Right? Unless that's your job, then they'll find you. But there was something about the shape of the moment, the shape of those three people, the shape of the space I occupied, and how all that came together, that what emerged was, do you want a cup of coffee? Right? That's not in the sutras. So, have confidence in what's most fundamental. You may want to remind yourself in some way, shape, or form what that is. But you don't have to figure it out. And when you have something that reminds you, then just continue to remind yourself in the Dharma room, and during chanting, and bowing and walking, and when you leave the Dharma room as your foot hits the sidewalk, and when you go toward your home. When you encounter people, consider why practice. And that will guide you way better than anything that comes from this direction. Okay? Other questions?
So how would you deal with kind of like involuntary emotions? You say we have our fundamental in practice, but like if you're really tired that day, or if just some sadness just comes up, how does practice help that, and like seeing other people's shapes when that kind of sometimes colors your reality?
Pei Chang said, sit like a dead tree stump. So try that.
What if the dead tree stump grows mold?
Yeah, it doesn't care. Eventually the dead tree stump becomes soil. It still doesn't care. So I'm not saying don't care, yeah, but there's something that's not involved with anything, in a sense. It's not trying to make anything any way. So what's your view of the arising and falling of phenomena? Is it voluntary or involuntary?
Involuntary.
If you phone somebody, is that a phenomenon?
I guess.
Is it voluntary or involuntary?
Voluntary.
So some are voluntary, some feel voluntary, and some feel involuntary. Do you know how they arise and how they fall?
No.
Good. Buddha doesn't know either. But if you sit like a dead tree stump, you'll see it. A monk asked Dongsan, when cold and hot come, how can we avoid them? Dongsan said, you must go to the place of no cold and no hot. The monk asked, where is this place of no cold and no hot? Dongsan said, when cold comes, cold kills. When hot comes, heat kills. Throughout the body are hands and eyes. Same thing. So if you want to see your nature, then you want to allow yourself to become completely intimate with the arising and falling of phenomena, and the safest place to do that is when you're sitting. because eventually you'll stand up. It's unlikely to kill you on the spot. It might kill you, but it won't kill your body. And then if you see something about how phenomena arise and fall, then you have some sense of what your participation in that is. And if you see fundamentally there's no thing to grasp, there's no thing to hold on to, then you find freedom there. If you find freedom there, then naturally things will appear and disappear. Why should you be any different from Buddha? Who are you? When Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree the night of his great awakening, the first watch of the night, he perceived all of his previous lives. The second watch of the night, he perceived all the previous lives of the universe. So, what's going on in your mind? You're seeing all your previous lives. Except you think it's a mess and you want to do something about it. Buddha maybe decided, oh, maybe I can learn something from this. Not like, let me figure it out, but, oh, that. So, something that lets it be, oh, that. But your own experience, not my oh, that. My oh, that isn't going to do you any good. So, you have something that's that for you. That thing. Then consider the right side and the left side. So standard teaching is don't make anything. Then you get everything. But everything is what you're getting when you're sitting and stuff appears that you don't like. That's part of everything. You don't get to choose the part that you get. Right? So if you want to see everything, then you have to let everything appear, not just the parts that you want. The second thing is, you make everything already. You can't not make stuff. We're the making creatures. Maybe all creatures are making creatures, but I know this kind of creature a little better. So if you make everything, then take care about what you make and how you make it. Because you just did it. All of it. If you rest with what's most fundamental, then what you make follows what's most fundamental. Then what you make becomes more harmonious with what's before you. Because you're not busy fighting it anymore. So if you're not busy fighting, and you're also not inert, naturally you're in harmony. If you're in harmony, then you and the world teach each other in that moment. So find that in your life. That's to recognize when it happens. It happens a lot. But the more you see it, the more you'll see it. Because we get good at what we do. Right? If you spend a lot of time fighting in your mind, you get very good at fighting in your mind. And we like to do what we're good at, so we'll do more of it because we feel good because we're good at it. But it's easier not to do something you're not interested in than to refrain from something you want to do. Right? So the more you see what's most fundamental, the less interesting toxic things become, because they don't taste right. If you make eggs, and you take a little bit of salt, and you put a little bit of salt, it's like, oh, that enhances the flavor. If you make eggs, and you take a fistful of salt, and you put it on the eggs, and then you serve it to James, involuntarily, he's going to go, bah! Right? Because it doesn't taste right. So, as your fundamental nature comes to life, that's a bad way to say it, but you got to say something, right? Then it's not interesting to put too much salt on your eggs. Then the nature of what you feel will follow that. So then there's also not too much to fight. But one other thing. Sensation and feeling tend to have subject and object. Right? I like Bomi, I don't like so-and-so. Right? Like that, don't like that. But liking and not liking, greed, hate, delusion, attraction, all those things have objects in our experience. But if you sit for a long time, the object disappears. Then you're just left with that human capacity. Oh, greed. Oh, anger. Oh, kindness. Right? Then you're in touch more with your capacities. So if you know what raw greed feels like, or raw hatred feels like, or raw annoyance feels like, it's not interesting to activate that. But if it has an object, then you feel like activating it because you want to do it to somebody. So you want the energy, you chop their head off. Right? But if you just experience avarice, right? So then it's not interesting, so you don't do it so much. Something else appears instead. Okay? Other questions? Let's fight about it.
Yeah.
Good! Kindness oriented.
So this afternoon I went out to get a coffee. And as I'm leaving the coffee shop, there are two guys fighting out in front. Or they're, getting ready to fight.
You didn't phone me?
I wish I had, because I didn't know what to do.
Right. Sometimes you don't know what to do and then you can't do very much.
Yeah, I felt very, and he had a brick in his hand.
Serious.
And he's
This is for real.
Yeah. This is not like a...
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there with my coffee, and the coffee shop's right behind me. And so I've done this thing for a little bit.
911.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the police station's right there. And there are other people around. We're all kind of looking. Like, oh my God, I hope he doesn't hit him with a brick. And
So you've got one guy with a brick,
yeah,
one guy who's provocative and about to be hit.
go ahead and hit me with a brick.
20 people standing around hoping it doesn't happen.
Correct.
Interesting.
Yeah. No, and none of us knew what to do. I suppose if he hit him with a brick, then people would jump in. And I just feel like, it's been a long time since I've been sitting on this cushion, and I could feel it in that moment. Right? Like, shit, I don't know what to do right now.
Right. Yeah, you and 20 other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm not responsible for the other 20 people. I mean, they can do what they do.
No, I'm saying you
I
have something in common with what I meant.
I did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you see what you had in common with the other two guys?
Oh yeah, one hit a lot of people with bricks.
Oh.
I have.
I'm going to leave now.
Yeah. I mean, you know what else I saw in common with them is like he didn't want to hit him with the brick, and the guy didn't want to get hit. But he didn't know how to not back out.
So how did it unfold?
I left.
And you learned something.
Well, I left after I watched them for a while,
Uh-huh.
and I could see that he didn't want to hit him. And and I was like, I don't think he's gonna hit him. And so at that point I left.
Oh.
But I still felt very like not knowing what to do.
You're suggesting you didn't do anything.
Correct.
Wrong.
Yeah, I left.
No, before you weren't not doing something, you were standing there watching.
Yeah.
That's doing something.
Yeah.
If you stood and turned your back, that would have been doing something. If you laid down and sang the Star Spangled Banner, that would have been doing something.
Yeah.
But you stood there and watched with 20 other people who stood there and watched.
Yeah.
And it's conceivable that the fact of you all standing there and watching may have had something. It's not that there were 2 people and then 20 people. There were 22 people.
No, but I mean, I hear what you're saying, and
Okay.
it's very generous.
Well,
But I also feel like we're kind of in a bit of like, it's almost a metaphor for the state of the world right now.
Right.
We're kind of in some shit, and there's a bunch of people standing around watching, not knowing what to do. And I'm like, and I'm one of those people, I'm like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, so again, you're not doing something. So
Yeah.
you're doing something.
Yeah.
And it would be good to know what that something is, to give yourself credit for doing something.
Well, again, it's very generous. But I feel like maybe there's something else.
Yeah, when you finish doing what you're doing, you'll do something else. But right now you're doing something, and then eventually it won't be that something. And I'm not just trying to be obscure. If it didn't bother you, you wouldn't be talking about it.
It's true, it's bothered me all afternoon.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
And then I became very frustrated with your story. Because I'm like, shit.
if I
Coffee for everyone!
baby, you know, that kind of honest frustration is how some kinds of change occur. Because it's uncomfortable to sit with it for too long, right? You end up, one way to go is you numb yourself. One way to go is you withdraw and try not to expose yourself to it at all. One way to do something is to do something that makes you feel better so it doesn't feel as bad. And one kind of thing is to kind of sit with the discomfort and say, what is this discomfort? You're not going to get a chance to go back to these 2 guys, probably, in that exact situation. It's already past. But they taught you something about them. They taught you something about the other 19 people, and they taught you something about you. And that's your strength, to see what they're teaching you. So maybe you pick up a sign in March, or maybe you sign a petition, or maybe you do extra bows, or maybe there's 10,000 points of light, right? If there's something that you have the capacity to do that you're wondering, should I do it? Well, 2 things. One is, if you have the capacity, you could. And the other is, you build the capacity by doing it. But consider, if you take the whole gestalt of the situation, just the whole thing, it doesn't sound like it ended with a brick in the face.
No, I don't think it did.
Right? And I don't want to give you more credit than you think you deserve, nor do I want to give you less credit, if credit is the issue at all. But the presence of those 22 people became that for the 2 people and for the other 20 people there. Somehow it became not hitting the guy with the brick. And there's something there about that 22 people who are confused and frozen have the power to help somebody not hit somebody else with a brick. In a way. Not linearly. But there it was. Right? They could have had the power to egg them both on if things had been a little bit different. Right? So witnessing is not doing nothing. And witnessing leads to something that has its own richness. And it's more valuable to focus on that than it is to berate yourself for not having done whatever it was you didn't do.
Yeah. I mean, I don't feel like I'm berating myself. I just feel, but I do feel like these things happen. I see
They
things
do all
that
over the
happen.
world.
Yeah. And so I do know what I was feeling when it was happening. Right? Like,
Which was?
I wanted to sort of hop in between them. And then there was this other part that's like, I don't think that's actually what they need right now, right? But I didn't know it didn't feel like I knew anything else.
Well, I tried that once.
Yeah.
I'm coming up the stairs to the Ford train at Fordham Road. And Fordham? Yeah, Fordham. And there were these three really big guys kicking some guy on the ground. They were displeased about something, I presume. And I went over there and I like, stop it. And this one guy grabs me by the shoulders and says, get out of here, nigger. And he picks me up and he throws me halfway across. He doesn't hurt me, just like he threw me so that I landed on my feet. There's a certain skill. But there wasn't anybody to measure, like, what's the world record for throwing cannon? He might have said it. So, they kept on what they were doing, and when they decided they'd done enough, they finished. Under those circumstances, I didn't have any skillful means other than to say, this citizen isn't pleased with what you're doing. But I also felt they had more presence of mind the second time, with the three guys about to fight, than I had when I saw people actually fighting. It stirred something where I wasn't quite as centered as I might have been. And I don't know if I were as centered as I might have been, if I might have been able to do anything about it. I think that's the sad thing, is that bad things happen that you can't stop. Right? I'm not a martial artist. I'm not a policeman. I'm, not that kind of presence. And I don't know what happened that caused the fight to begin with. Right? Maybe he had done something egregious to somebody else. Or maybe he just insulted them. Who knows? But, the lesson to me is, don't get involved that way again. Yeah, but when we get close to, when the suffering is right here, right, it's different than if you see it in the newspaper. And so the immediate sensation has more to do with anger or fear or helplessness or retreat or retribution or something, because it's right here. So under those circumstances, maybe all you can do for yourself is to be a student of the circumstance and let that affect you somehow. And I think the virtue of our particular approach to practice, not that we're the only people with this virtue, but you let it sink in. Because if you let it sink in, it moves, it circulates, it becomes something else. And if you don't let it sink in, it becomes something that's frozen either as a wall or some internal inhibition, right, or some blocked impulse. And those aren't as healthy as letting it sink in and being upset about it. That's one human thing we do.
I'm worried. So I have a question. I would like to hear probably your comment on the situation that I have. I practiced for probably 3 or 4 years. I don't really keep count. I don't really practice for anything. I just do. And you described what I would summarize as trust in your nature, or trust in yourself, and just do things. And it's very interesting that it sounds very easy. And I've been in a situation where it was easy because of my practice, but right now it's actually hard. And I would like to give you a couple examples. Like, I became vegetarian just without craving meat. That's what I want to do. I just did it. And a lot of people just, I want to one more week. I want to
One more time.
Yeah, or, I just, but it was like, why would I do that if I don't like it, right? Or why would I eat something that is in front of me, like a cake, which just looks very delicious, but and usually, in usual circumstances, I would, but I just, all right, well. And on the other hand is, when it's hard, is that a lot of situations where it gets hard is that I'm excited about a lot of things, and all the things that I want to do is actually hard to do, especially because I'm worried. I have big ambitions. It's like, I don't want to finish this course in 2 days, which is like a month course, etc.
So the hard things you want to do were hard because you're approaching them in a way where they can't be done the way you approach them.
No, I understand that things can be done, if you manage it properly. I learned that hard way.
Oh, okay, so good.
But still, there are situations when it gets hard. I've never it's very easy to do under pressure. When somebody tells you a goal, like if you work in a job and some like a boss tells you what to do, it's very easy to, okay, he tells me what to do, I'm gonna do it. But then when I want to do it myself, like when I set my goals, have so many other things in the kitchen, and I want to give someone a call, etc., etc. And but I guess in this case is it's actually like when I'm doing the course, it's really hard to focus. Even I have a clear vision, I'm just with whatever is in front of me. I'm getting distracted anyway, and I love it actually. It's course in logic, I'm doing it, and then after half an hour, I'm getting distracted by the thoughts. It just takes me away, etc. And it's actually has where a fact where like frustration or something, or failure, probably some mix of that thoughts. So coming back to the beginning, what I was saying at the beginning is that I understand that it's supposed to be easy to say, it's emotion, like see things fundamentally and just let it go. But it's still not, because it still actually overtakes me pretty much. You see what I'm saying? And I end up, like after half an hour doing things that I actually enjoy a lot, I got really tired, like mentally, and I just take a break. Like pretty much, probably even unconsciously. So like what would you say is how to learn to stay, like see things fundamentally more like in real life outside Dharma?
A couple of things.
Yeah.
One is practicing here in the Dharma room is to engage our fundamental nature without distraction. And naturally, distractions arise. To engage our fundamental nature without distraction. Naturally, distractions arise.
When you say engage, what do you mean? Because we don't really engage, we just, okay, and just, that's it. But you don't engage with it. Engage would mean you're thinking about it.
Not necessarily. You engage with a loaf of bread. You engage with your toothbrush. So to be fully present with something is to really engage with it.
Okay, that makes sense.
That way. It's good to make anchor points during the day and call that practice too. Like folding laundry or washing dishes or cooking or walking down the street, because the quality of mind that you call forth during sitting has a particular feeling when you sit. But when you get up and you move, your metabolism changes and your feelings change. Sometimes you feel you've lost something. But that's like I brush my teeth and then I spit it out in the sink, and then I mourn the toothpaste is now in the sink instead of my mouth anymore. But your activity has changed, so your mouth is doing something different. So to continue the intention of sitting, find places during the day that you also call practice. That's the second thing. The third thing is you're describing a circumstance where if you do something for longer than a particular period, you get tired and you become distracted, and then you push yourself and then you get more distracted.
Probably.
So there's probably something about what do you do when you encounter an obstacle that you have something to learn from. So if your only way to deal with things is to, when you encounter an obstacle, if you deal with it by pushing yourself harder until you get tired, and then getting annoyed that you're being tired, but now you're tired, so you have to take a break till you have the energy to engage it again. You've tried that, right? That's not a useful cycle. And it may be that your default setting currently is maybe you can study for 15 minutes and remain focused, and maybe you need a 4-minute break or a 5-minute break, for instance, and then you can study for another 15, and then you have a 5-minute break, and now you've just studied for 30 minutes of concentration with a 10-minute break, instead of trying to study for 30 minutes, but you can only pay attention for 16. You've gained 14 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit like if I want to run a marathon, so I decide to work out for 10 miles, but I get tired at 7. And then I just kind of slog through because I have to get to 10. Maybe if I run for 5, different people train differently, but if I run for 5 and walk for 2 and run for 5 and walk for 2, some people train that way. But that has to do with understanding the training rhythm that works for them. And academic study is a form of training. So if you approach it as training, then you want to become familiar with your training rhythm, and you've described your training rhythm. Right? You may not like your training rhythm, and you may wish you had a different one, but you've described a training rhythm that has a certain set of parameters and certain limitations. And so if you use that wisely, you'll build up that muscle and it will grow. And if you fight against the rhythm, then you'll never find the rhythm that works for you. So some of it may have to do with that in terms of what does your brain do when it's tired. Right? Somebody asked earlier, I'm sitting and I'm tired, what do I do? I don't know what you should do, but what I've discovered is that my fingertips aren't tired usually. And I've sat long enough that they don't